It is time for the Berkshire Edge on air, a time where we get together with David and Marcy, talk about stories that they've got. Not nearly all the stories, because they have so many stories posted every day, 7 days a week, and it's available at the berkshireedge.com 24 hours a day. And I think the only time they really get a break from that is when they talk with us. Good morning, guys.
That's right. That's why we do this. It's kind of like sleep.
That's right. Very cathartic. Very cathartic. That's right. Well,
we're talking in our sleep, actually.
Hey, believe you me, there's been more than a times where I've been out at meetings and had to catch myself, almost like back in high school days when you used to put your head behind a book in study hall and sleep. It's just one of those things. What the lead story that you have up there is Great Barrington has been noted for a lot of things, but it lingers on the local libertarian think tank with the Great Barrington report from the American Institute for Economic Research, and it's the story that just won't go away from Great Barrington.
No, it won't. They issued the so-called Great Barrington Declaration, and it was a think tank document that in the midst of this pandemic, said that, well, we don't need a vaccine. It'll just die out. Sound familiar? Just go away. Of course, a lot of people will die, but that was their kind of hands-off, let the market take care of itself approach.
We have had a very interesting and thoughtful letter from a local attorney named Dan Seitz, and we posted that yesterday, saying, don't just dismiss this as some right-wing insanity. Look at this carefully. They are making some interesting points, and we have to look at the side effects of shutting things down. So it's worth reading. I mean, he's a very interesting man who has worked in natural medicines for most of his career. I mean, that's been part of what he does. I mean, the policy and legislation of more natural therapies, and he makes some very interesting points, which I think are. I mean, he's saying that these people are not idiots at the AIER, and that they have, some interesting ideas which, should be considered.
I think I think he's absolutely right, because when I looked at that story, and I've looked at it several times, and when I read portions of it, to me it was an economic document that happened to include the pandemic.
Not a medical document.
Yeah, it was, and if you look at the economic side, well, then you can have the banter back and forth. You really can, but I think a lot of people are taking it not only as an economic document that also kind of veers off and goes into medical, but the basis of it is really based on the economics of shutdowns.
Right.
Well, I think
it's not a political document.
Yeah, not at all.
Well, it is a political.
Well, it is.
Document.
It's been made into one.
Well, but the implications of it are certainly political.
Yeah.
The hands off the market. This is Ayn Rand.
And it's also the Koch brothers. It is a very conservative perspective. But on the other hand, I think that we have gotten to the point where we just have blinders on. Our minds are made up. Don't confuse us with the facts. And and I think we're never going to get through this period unless we realize that there are someone like Dan Seitz. Is an intelligent guy who has the best of intentions, and I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean he cares, and he has another perspective, and it's worth taking a look at.
There's nothing.
I mean, it is true that most scientists around the world have dismissed this Great Barrington Declaration as garbage and right-wing garbage. But I think it's worth looking at Dan's letter, because he talks about the downsides of quarantine and the damage that's being done, as a result of quarantine, which may be as widespread as the damage that can be done by by opening things up. So it's. I mean, I'm not.
He's not
advanced.
necessarily also an advocate of their. He calls he calls it faulty science.
Yeah, but you open yourself up to other views, and if you're really going to try to make a decision on that, read the document and try to understand.
And read, Dan's letter. I mean, what he says. I mean, people have made fun of this document because the AIER says that it's been signed by 400,000 people or whatever, 40,000 people, I guess. And, some of those names were phony names. And then they took the list down. They had the list on their website, and they've taken the list down. But he does say that the people who, drafted and signed the original document are not lightweights.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So again, I mean, I worry about this whole herd immunity. I mean, I worry that there are crackpots like that Dr. Atlas, who's a radiologist now advising Trump on epidemiological policy. He knows nothing about it.
Yes.
And this declaration kind of agrees with him. But still, I mean, I respect Dan Seitz, and I think it's just worth reading.
Okay.
Also, I must say that this Great Barrington Declaration just went all over the world.
Yes, it did.
Right. I mean, it was picked
The
up.
Guardian wrote about it. The PBS NewsHour had a piece about it. I'm sure it was elsewhere too. Those are just the two places that I saw it.
It's been
so
published.
now we're going to be known. Which is odd. Great Barrington, this bastion of liberal thinking and liberal politics, is going to be known as the home of this crackpot right-wing cult.
Well, they're not a crackpot right-wing cult, but they're going to be seen as that by a lot of people.
Yeah, it's and people that think that will not have even read the document or not really understand about the document. No. Let's go on to your next story, and that is your columnist, a column about social Darwinism.
Mm.
Oh, that's Carol Owens. Yeah, well, she's responding to this same issue, and she writes about this too, and. How it's been accepted in it's been a tradition in a way. It's been a theme of thinking, for a long time. That's her historical perspective on this is really pretty interesting. She calls it social Darwinism, and she said that she points out that it's kind of on the rise again.
It's an interesting back-to-back look at both the Barrington document and really about. I've never heard the term social Darwinism before, but it does.
Oh, really?
No, but it rings true. It rings true.
No, it was a very big movement at one point, and in fact. It's sort of the basis of the Nazi discrimination too. I mean, they felt that certain people were more deserving than to be bred than others.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's not the type of thing that we've heard about recently a lot. I want to move on though, because your next story, Dan Dwyer does a radio show here, and he did a 2-part series with. Allison Drew, talking about the disappearance of her father and the particulars, and how she still hopes to find out what happened. And then I look at and I read your story on this, and it's a compelling story, and it's a real interesting story.
Yeah, it seems to be, and it's interesting. This is one of those missing people stories that is sort of a mystery. And, lots of areas have these stories that sort of linger. They kind of become almost like legends. I remember when I was living in Vermont, there were, in Bennington, Vermont, there were many stories about people who had hiked into the mountains and just never it just disappeared. And this is another one of those. So I mean, it's interesting that this has now come back up because of a book, and it's well, it's a story you guys must have been following too for a long time.
Well, yeah, because I personally know the person who was watching watching him. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's a very well known person in this area that was, and there's
that
just
was one of the who was watching the man who disappeared.
Yeah, and there's a lot of untied ends in this story, and unfortunately, it's the type of story that is going to be out there. And I think really what people have to look when they look at and they listen to Alice and Drew and they hear the story. All they are looking for, the Drew family right now, is closure, and they don't.
Right.
You just never have that closure unless you absolutely know what happened.
Right.
I can't imagine going through the rest of my life not knowing that if my mother disappeared, not knowing
right.
That's just something that doesn't go away until you get that closure. So it's an interesting story, and if you buy the book is actually also a great, gives you a lot of great insight into it as well.
Yeah, I thought you guys would be interested in this particular story because it's, in your neighborhood there in Salisbury.
You've got now the Boston Symphony Orchestra is back front and center, and COVID-19 back front and center with this Holiday Pops concert.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, the orchestra is coming back, or at least it's on stage somewhere, and it's going to be able to be streamed. But it's been a kind of the stages have been dark in Berkshire County.
Well, except that I must tell you that there were about 18 people in the audience, but we went to a live concert last Saturday, and again, full disclosure, I am chair of the board.
Well, that's our sixth item.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, can I move it up?
Well, we can go to.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'm chair of the board of this music series, Close Encounters with Music, and they are doing a series of streamed concerts from the Mahawi, but the first one was actually taped before a very small live audience, and it'll go live on the Mahawi website and the Close Encounters website at 7:30 this Saturday at 7:30. And it's a gorgeous concert. But I must say that David and I it was such a pleasure to attend a live concert.
Yeah.
As I said, I mean, they were, it was only the board of Close Encounters that was invited, and half of them didn't show up because they were afraid to go to an inside concert. But so there were about 18 of us all together in the audience, in the whole Mahawi. So we were in the first row of the balcony looking down, and it was like we had our own private concert. And the musicians were in tears. They were so happy to be back on a stage performing before live people. And there's a little Q&A with the musicians at the end of the concert that'll be on the tape. Worth waiting for because they talk about what it's been like for them not to be able to play before live people.
It's interesting. In New York State, movie theaters are going to be allowed, I do believe, in the next week or two, to open up to limited capacity. And our movie reviewer, David Sterrett, since he's in Maryland, they opened up the theaters there, and he's been going to see some of the movies during the day. And he was a little wary at first, but he's gone now, I think, to 5 or 6 different movies, and he's been the only one in the theater. So it's almost been like he's been at a private viewing room to see this on the big screen. But I'll tell you what, the entertainment industry and the movie theater industry itself has got to do a lot of clawback because they've lost so much money. And even if you allow, I would say 30 or 40% of the amount of people inside the movie theater, with the cost, it's just, it's going to be hard for movie theaters to break even allowing 30 to 40 to 50% of the people in the building.
I know.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. It is. And, and the other thing, every time I get together with friends on Zoom, they're talking about all these wonderful things they've been watching on, on all of the premium channels or Netflix and Amazon. It coincided with a golden age of television where, there was already all this scripted content that's so fantastic. These miniseries that the movies are paling by comparison.
Well, it's interesting. I do watch a lot of Netflix. I do watch a lot of Amazon Prime. What I found myself watching also is movies I would never ever go to the theater for. But here's what I do miss. I've got a big screen. I mean, huge. I think it's like a 90-inch screen, and I've got surround sound, and I've got everything.
Like in a theater.
But it's fun to watch sports on. But I'll be honest with you, it's okay to watch a movie on, but there's just something, maybe because of going to a theater and having the huge screen, and sitting there with some popcorn, really.
Sitting in the dark.
And sitting in the dark and watching a movie. I mean, I can't imagine me loving Star Wars, the whole series, as much if it only came out in a format that was TV type of format. I don't think you wouldn't have the attraction and the longevity of it. There's something about movie theaters and the screens that just make that impact. It's like seeing live music. There's just you can hear recorded music, but when you go someplace and actually see it and seeing live stage, it just leaves an indelible mark on you. So
there's sort of the event. Talking about movies. There's the sort of event aspect that you go someplace, you go out to see it. And also, there's the rest of the audience, and their reaction makes a difference.
It's a weird and tricky situation. Well, let's go back to reality once again. Okay,
sorry,
that's okay.
No. That's well, this is reality.
You're right. It is reality, and in a non-reality type of. I still, like I said, I'll wrap this up by this. I'll never watch a movie on my phone. Okay, period.
No.
It's over. Never.
And there's a woman in my book club who reads the books on her phone.
I'm sorry.
I thought, oh my God.
Yeah, never. I'm sorry. Not for me. Okay. Let's go to Hannah Van Sickle.
Yeah.
Let's go to Hannah Van Sickle.
Yes.
Right. Well, she has a nice story here about the food pantries in Berkshire County, or South Berkshire County, anyways, are remaining open, and are really it's a life or death situation for some people. These are absolutely essential institutions for so many, especially in the in this pandemic time where people are impoverished, and it's a interesting story about how these food co-ops and food pantries are coping with this.
Yeah, and what's interesting is most of the food pantries around here, and we are involved with the folks that do the Sunday in the Country food drive. They always purchase all their foods locally and deliver it to local pantries. So, and they used to have a lot of fundraising events. Well, they can't now, so they're doing raffles and they're raising money that way so they can distribute the food. But what we found out talking to the food banks around here and the pantries is that the demand is not just the normal demand for people that were low-income families that needed to feed their children. Now, because of the pandemic and because of people being unemployed, their demand is up by almost 25%.
Yeah.
And I got an email which we're going to post too. From Berkshire Bounty, which is a food pantry. It runs the People's Pantry, or it sends their produce to the People's Pantry in Great Barrington, and they're starting another drive. But their last drive resulted in over 2,000 pounds of donated food, and it goes to the People's Pantry and the South Congregational Church. This is, this is incredible, and they have it set up so that drivers go to donors' homes. They ask the donors to, leave canned or packaged foods by their doors, let them know that it's ready, and drivers will go pick it up, so it's contactless. And also, there are drop-off points at either the People's Pantry or at the Synagogue Hevra in South Berkshire, Hevra of Southern Berkshire, which is in Great Barrington, where you can drop food off, so you don't have to touch anybody to donate. And they have been more active. They've been around. Berkshire's Bounty has been around for a few years, but it's been even more active this year.
All right. Well, those stories and many, many, many more. You guys do. You guys do a great job of bringing local news and having.
We're trying.
And it's not just local news. It deals with entertainment. It deals with your calendar. It deals with your magazine. It's a whole experience that once again exposes to our local area. Yes, we're still alive. Yes, go out and live. And yes, there are things going on. And yes, there's stories you should follow.
There are things going on. So. There really are a lot of things going on. And, for example, we got something from the West Stockbridge Library. I think it's on our calendar. But they are doing sort of a ghost walk or something.
For Halloween.
For Halloween. There are things happening for Halloween. And there is a very limited trick-or-treating allowed, at least in Great Barrington. So there are things going on. Of course, I worry very much about what's going to happen when the weather gets cold.
Well, we'll see.
The restaurants are going to deal with this.
But just keep up the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
The BerkshireEdge.com is the location, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Guys, we'll speak to you next week.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye, Marshall.
That is David and Marcy from the Berkshire Edge, theberkshireedge.com.